Welcome to What's Important to You, the podcast where we explore purpose, passion, and the moments that truly matter. I'm James Dean, and each week I sit down with inspiring guests to uncover what drives them, inspires them, and what's important to them. What if the moments that break you are actually the ones that bring you home, back to who you really are? In this conversation, we explore the power of connection, the courage to trust yourself, and how growth often begins in the middle of uncertainty. It is a conversation about authenticity, values, and rediscovering purpose after change. Today, we find out what's important to Conor Clarke. Hi, Conor. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Great being here, James. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to dive straight in, Conor, with the first question, which is, what's important to you?
Connection. What I mean by that is being connected to myself, what matters most, my work and the people around me. And connection all comes with alignment, James. Living true to my core values and having self-trust. So that's what's important to me. My internal world aligning with what's out there, and really it's all about connection.
Love it. It's really interesting because the episode that's actually going to be released today, that lady's same word was connection. So it's very in the moment. So what, when you say connection, tell me a bit more about it. What does that mean?
To me, James, as I said, it's core values, my personal compass. It helps making decisions easier, investing time and energy in things that I enjoy, being people around, like the relationships, the love and the nurture, and not to waste time on things that drain me, exhaust me, and quite frankly, don't make me feel fulfilled. The connection, even just reading a book, having a coffee, being present of what's around me, and just not worrying about what's happening outside, but only control what I control. And that's really how connection comes, but mainly in line with my values of helping people, honesty, trust, adventure, and personal development. So that's where I get the most joy from.
Interesting. You literally beat me to it. I was going to ask you there because you said them a few times about values. So tell me about them.
Well, my values, James, to be honest, where I ask questions like, am I honest with myself? Am I honest with the life I'm living? Honest with the work I'm doing, the people around me? And trust. Do I trust myself, the decisions I'm taking, the path I'm following? Because one time in the past, I didn't trust myself. And when you become aware of that, then you self-betrayal every day until you start trusting yourself again. Because I think we all have that inner compass and value system. If we choose to listen to it, tap into it, or if we're not even aware of it, we're either we're living true to our values or suppressing them.
Interesting. That was a very interesting use of the phrase, if you're not trusting yourself, it's a self-betrayal. That's an interesting way of putting it.
It's awareness, James. Once you become aware of something, now there's a difference maybe if you don't know
Yes.
or it's your first time experiencing. But really, when you start waking up or realizing, wait, there's something not feeling right here, I'm not happy, I'm not content, that's when you have to make those changes. Because once you're aware of that and each day you let it go by, let it build up, that's what I mean by self-betrayal. So it's like not listening to our intuition or instinct. How I see it maybe possibly is that we're letting fear get in the way, the logical mind, self-sabotage, the fear of the unknown, what will people say. Once you become more aware and connected with your core values, these kind of things you sort of don't worry about as much, and you let go and start living true to yourself. So it's all starting about coming home to self, to finding that clarity you want for your life or the path you're meant to take. I know it sounds quite maybe very philosophical at times, but there's a lot of noise out there, and it's about decluttering the noise and really listen to what's my heart telling me. What would younger Connor, 17 years of age, want?
Yeah, it's interesting when you just said that there because you immediately started smiling. You immediately started your whole shift in there when you said that sentence about what would that 17-year-old want to do. It just shows, yes, there's an element of it could be all quite sort of high level, or if we want to talk about too philosophical. But if we don't have that philosophy, we're just going on that path that we're just doing it for the sake of it.
Yeah, we become directionless, maybe stuck, frustrated, disconnected would be probably the best word to put it.
Mm.
Connection versus disconnection, and disconnection is when you might have lost touch with who you are or what matters most. So I think both of them link together. But it's okay to have bad days, which is normal. But if they're consistently there, or your relationships are getting impacted, you're not enjoying your work, it can be quite hard to stay on that path. And I was having a chat there the other day with a friend I met up. She's starting her coaching journey, and we both have accountancy backgrounds, and we know a lot of accountants and finance professionals, and it doesn't matter what profession, but it's the sunk cost of staying on that path where they rather do something else, where that time, that energy, that investment, and if we walked away from it, would we have wasted everything? And it's just a change of thinking. It feels like, well, what skills have I got? What experience do I have? How can I use this to impact the world or something bigger than me, something serving? So it's sticking to that path, James. I could have been one of those people potentially, but I got off the path when the feeling of pain wasn't worth it. So I
Hey,
think it's a
and
lot
is
easier
it?
to go somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose it's to clarify as well, though. It was a pain.
Yeah, I guess I would have been quite idealistic when I was coming out of university. I thought the dream was I'd be setting up my own accountancy practice and have my own clients. Mm, Didn't transpire to be out that way, where I ignored my instinct quite early in my first accountancy job, James. I knew in the first couple of weeks this firm wasn't for me. I stayed for another 15 months, and to this day, it's the worst decision I ever made. So it impacted my self confidence. My communication became passive. I was always second guessing myself, couldn't make a decision, and worst of all is I could no longer trust myself. And these things were impacting my sleep. My relationships were starting to deteriorate. It was impacting my health. I was drinking quite a lot most evenings, and then not exercising, binge watching, and just distracting myself. And then when that pain became too much after 16 months, that's when I left. And James, what I realized from that experience, I wasn't taking any personal responsibility for my life. I had to rebuild my confidence. I had to learn assertiveness communication. And the two or three valuable lessons I always carry forward today is to always trust myself, listen to my instinct, and follow my intuition. So it was already in me, but maybe never experiencing that kind of pain before kept me stuck. But we all have that in us. But it's maybe just trusting ourselves a little bit more to go out into the unknown and realize, well, most of our worries don't actually happen, unless you get stuck in that kind of trap for too long. Maybe it's a possibilities and opportunities to look at now, but pain was my greatest teacher, and trusting myself is something I've been doing quite well, or for the most part, for the last, I say, at least 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it a few times in that the coming about a trust in yourself. So what if you were to think back, what were you not trusting about yourself?
I didn't really know who I was, James. If I was being honest with you, I never really looked into, like, I had an idea of values, but I didn't understand the importance of aligning core values to, suppose, the work I do at the moment, and being idealistic and not taking personal responsibility. It's like, oh, it's the boss or it's my colleagues. They're immature, this and that, but I chose to stay. So that's where I realized, well, I made a choice to stay there for another 15 months, where over time, especially after 8 or 9 months, there was a huge shift. So sort of like building and building and building and building that resentment. And then I realized, I remember the day I decided I was going to leave, or it came to an abrupt end, let's say, is where I sort of felt the frustration at a meeting. And my boss just replied, just play the game, Connor. I was like, what do you mean play the game? And like, whatever happens in there, just play it. I don't care what happens as long as the work gets done. And then I just sort of like realized, yeah, it just confirms like, this isn't for me. Bye bye. But it's sort of, I get a lot of younger people, newly qualified trainee accountants, and people in professional trainee graduate roles asking me, well, would have wasted my time. Leaving, it's like, what age are you? I was like, I'm 23. It's like, you're miles ahead of most people, but you just can't see it yet because you're not long in a professional work environment, or possibly haven't hit that pain point or frustration. So I'm all about living a life that's true, aligned to you. That's just trusting what you want, not what people think's best for you. It's quite a liberating feeling once you realize that you're breaking away from these imaginary chains that you've put on yourself. That it's only you keeping yourself stuck. Now I know it's difficult with maybe if you have kids or mortgages or depending on circumstances, but we can always take little steps or try to get 1% better each day and keep learning and growing. So yeah, trust. It's an important value of mine. I have my own definition of it, but it's nothing worse not living true to yourself, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, I can. When you said that phrase of "play the game," that's a very much resonates because it's that feeling of you just got to just get on with it. And I say when I say get on with it, there's always an element of any sort of career or work where there's a part you have to do the work and get on with. But the play the game, it sounds almost surreptitious. There's a sort of underlying sort of you've got to just do whatever to get ahead.
Yeah, a competing mindset, James, I'd say,
Mm,
to win.
mm,
Like, obviously, the work has to be done, but it's more the environment.
mm,
Kind of impacting and bullying or taking things a bit too far is a different thing. And I've worked in some great places, I've worked in not so great places, but it's a mindset and a belief that this is what the environment or the work world's like. And that's probably the scary thing if people really believe this is how to get ahead, where like I'd rather try to do it in a fair way and earn it rather than throw someone under the bus because then it just doesn't align with my values, so it's going to impact me somehow or another. But look, I'm not in that kind of world anymore. I'm in my own path. I'm doing my best to, and as a coach, inspiring people, helping them reach their full potential, and creating a life on their terms and their definition of success.
So I'm always interested. We're going to go through more stuff, but I'm always interested in where people go from one to the other. So how did you go from accountancy into the world of coaching?
So there's a gap. So there's a bit of a journey, let's say. I finished out my trainee accountancy with the flexible route, and then I left the firm I was with. It just wasn't working. We just departed ways. And look, I didn't feel good about it, and I had to take time, step again. But the second half of that journey was better. I felt I was in an environment more aligned that was interested in my growth, more interested in me getting over the line. So I qualified as a chartered accountant at the end of 2018, and I moved to Vancouver in January 2019. So I was like, okay, fresh start. I think after 3.5 years or 4 years or 4.5 of exams and really tough 18 months at one stage. And I wanted to try something new, maybe like recruitment or HR or something around jobs. But I fell back into accountancy, and the old feelings came back after 5 weeks. And it was probably a worse in terms of pressurized environment. Like, have to meet the budget, have to be in line with the audit standards because it's more serious over there, the penalties, and it's CPA. So I probably was coming with an Irish background that it was probably a huge adjustment to understand their reporting standards and requirements. But it was 7 weeks into the job, and really I've sort of back to old ways of drinking quite a bit and put on a bit of weight, more comfort eating and distraction. But my boss asked me, James, at the time, do you want to be doing this kind of work for the rest of your life? Now, I think what he meant at the time was sort of the shallow, the repetitive, the tedious work, where getting to the next level, progressing to a supervisor, a manager, and that. But I was looking at it like, do I really want to be doing this work for the rest of my life? Like in accountancy and finance and that area? And the answer was no. No, I just did not want to be doing that anymore. And I told the boss a couple of weeks after, handed in my resignation after 10 weeks and travelled around Canada for 4 months, parts of America, and then I came back to Ireland and I had on my mind for a while to try acting, something creative, because I thought that was the answer. Something being creative, enjoying the moment with people. And when I got back and after a few steps I realized that's not what I wanted. And that's when I hit rock bottom most of my life. I didn't know who I was. The acting gig was a Walter ego thing. I think it was there to protect me from stress and not to distract. But I took a few steps with it, and with a friend, James, he suggested this psychotherapist. So I went to that psychotherapist and he asked two questions. I spoke for like an hour. He asked me two questions. Do you trust yourself? And if you trusted yourself a little bit more, would it make any significant difference to your life? And then it just hit me. I wasn't trusting myself for a few years. I've been carrying this emotional weight for too long, this baggage that I just felt dropped. I dropped the whole thing, and then shortly after I went traveling around Southeast Asia for a bit until COVID happened. Had to cut my trip short in Vietnam, came back to Ireland, and I was curious about coaching. I said I wanted to give a diploma, personal business executive coaching ago, which I did with III, and in the space of 9 or 10 months, I read 72 books. Loved the diploma, coached 14 people pro bono, and then I fell back into another accountancy job during COVID because I needed to make some money, and it was around 3 weeks before my 30th birthday. I was coming to the end of my contract. I said, with the next decade of my life, I'm not starting in a job in accounting. So I spoke to my boss and we had a really good conversation. Basically, my last day was the 17th. My birthday was the 18th of August, the 17th. And then I've been out of accountancy for the last 4 years and 1 month. Haven't went back, haven't been forced to go back. I was doing a little bit of coaching for a few months and a recruitment opportunity came up, which I loved. I actually did like recruitment. It is helping people and that, but when agencies are under pressure, they're more under interesting KPIs. You know, how many CVs you send and not caring about the candidate process at all, or even the clients. Worked at one agency that went bust and another one that's basically gone under, and I just was left before I burnt out, and this strict coming back to the office 3, 4, 5 days a week, and since then been coaching the last 18 months, and I've enjoyed it. It's been very challenging, but you choose your own struggle, you choose your own battle, and I think I've helped around 20 something professionals along the way, making career changes, working on their confidence, assertiveness, communication skills, and coming home to themselves. So I have a new program, Coming Home to Clarity, which has really pieced everything together. So that's how I managed to get into coaching in line. My values were calling me, my purpose was calling me, and I wasn't going to self-betray myself coming into an office in recruitment when I had no more. So it came to an end, and here I'm now, and I've many opportunities and possibilities. It's been a huge learning curve, but I don't regret any of it, James.
Hi, James here. If you've been watching and thinking, I would like to make a change but not sure where to start, that's where I can help. My 12-week coaching program will enable you to reconnect with what matters most and move forward with clarity and confidence. If that sounds like you, head over to jamesdeancoach.com. Now let's get back to the episode. No, absolutely. And it's what's interesting again about the story is it's not a straight off. It's steps forwards, step backwards, step forwards, step backwards. Learning as you go and almost repeating sometimes the same errors before you get to where you want to get to, and each time thinking I've got to go back into something to either keep things going, keep the money coming in, whatever. So there's always things that we have to do, but the realization of how you probably got there quicker each time, how negative it was, if that makes sense. You realized it sooner.
Yeah, I guess each experience, James, with the learning and the setbacks there's a way you treat people, and going back for money is fine, even if a business works out or it doesn't. It's like giving it a shot, giving it your best, and not having any regrets. And that's what the coming home to yourself and being true to yourself. And those kind of environments, when it's productivity over people, and you can sort of see the lines. Like when I was younger, maybe in the first accountancy job, I wouldn't have that awareness. Where now, I'm old enough to make my own decisions. I don't need an adult to stand over me and tell me what to do. Not in a way I'm rebelling, but you sort of need to trust me to get on with the job and to have that autonomy for myself to hit my potential. And if there's trust misalignment, and I guess other things with recruitment, promises were broken from both firms, and that comes back to trust as well. So that's what I value in relationships, and if that trust isn't there, then I give people second chances in that, but it's when it's deliberately broken. There's a difference from making a mistake or stress or frustration, for example. But we can all learn from mistakes, and we can all progress. It's progress over perfection and curiosity over judgment, what I find. And it's about believing you can make this change, and you can create an environment or a world on your terms and on your values. And if you need to go back to a job, you could try something new. That's the great thing about writing new chapters for ourselves, new experiences, picking up new skills, qualifications. So there's a lot to win and a lot to benefit from. Have you got everything there, James? All good?
Yeah, yeah. Perfect. It's just breaking up on me a little bit.
Sorry, could you repeat that again? I just think it didn't come through there.
It's just the it is dropping in and out of me a little bit more than usual.
Okay. I was just highlighting there how just the trusting ourselves in the path we take, it can make a huge difference to our quality of life, the relationships we have, and creating opportunities and experiences with the work we do. That's what's important to me when you ask the very having that connection. I don't think it's good to have a career, but I don't think people realize that they're following a path maybe designed rather than designing that path themselves. If that's through indoctrination, society's expectations, school system, it's probably a deeper level of why are so many people unhappy, unfulfilled, and not living the jobs. And I think a lot of it comes back to awareness, not knowing the basics of what's my why, what's my purpose, what's my values, what's my beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it is now coming into that space of why. What is and almost that sort of directly even putting it, what's the point? And because there's something you said there about the recruitment role and the two companies that you looked at, and that sort of that thing of just hit the numbers, regardless of how good they are, quality are, just send them across. We've just got to hit our numbers. So if you're the person fulfilling that, then you're really you're not really trying to find the right person for the right role. You're just there, just trying to plow through the work so it looks like on some sort of spreadsheet or a dashboard that we've hit the numbers that we're aiming to do.
Yeah, it's just management covering themselves.
Hmm.
The quality of the process is not given the respect that it deserves. People are being misled.
Hmm.
Look, it's a tough industry, and then at the end of the day, there is a sales element to it. You make a placement, the client pays for it, but there's a way how you do things, and there's a way that you don't do things. Maybe it's because this personal development journey I've gone on, and you can sort of see from the basics of not having conversations, listening to the other person, and not really caring. I've worked with recruiters that commit fraud. They blatantly lied, and they're still in the profession. So I don't have anything against the profession, but maybe some of the environments, and not all agencies are like that. it's a pretty tough economy at the moment, and as I said, one firm went under, the other one is still in existence. But decisions I've made to leave were in my best interest in terms of following values or trying to find an agency at least it can have aligned with what I want and they want. But yeah, I think the old kind of thinking, success being in the office, success hitting these numbers, it's an outdated system 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I think it's jealousy as well from older people. I've had to be in the office for 20 to 50, 20, 25 years. And I think it's been demonstrated people can work from home, and the quality of life, if they get to spend it with their family, meet their friends after work, spend it with their children, go for a walk during the lunch break. And look, there I know there's financial elements of shareholder value and the real estate property of having people back into the office, but I don't know, I think there's just a misalignment and people burning out and just not happy. There's deeper issues to it, and I think it comes back to the why you mentioned. Well, why am I feeling like this? Why am I doing this? Why am I not happy? It comes back to, I find, the awareness of your core values and the misalignment, or maybe not so much the work at times. It could just be the environment. You might need a change. But recruitment, it's helped with the coaching in a way. I do feel there's always gifts and talents from every job, so that's why I try to look at from the positives rather than the negatives. Do help bring positives in terms of learning, growth, and learning a little bit more about myself as well, how I handle some things. There's probably things I could do a bit differently around difficult people, but I just think I'm just happier just doing what I want and taking responsibility for my decisions and choices.
Absolutely. And then for the people that you work with at the moment, what's it that you're trying to help them with then?
Just really to live the life that they want, to live a life aligned with their core values and to trust themselves. Most are hesitant, and I was working with mainly accountancy and finance professions. They get caught up in, I need to have absolutely 100% clarity versus taking the action. And actions build confidence. Where if you're looking for 100% clarity, there's always going to be self-doubt, fear, there can't be no setbacks, can't fail. I don't want people to think of me as a failure or a laugh, or they laugh. So it's looking at it the wrong way. And even if they had 100% clarity, they're like, oh, I'm too busy, or the time's not right, or, what might my boss think if I, all these things. And it just doesn't. I don't know, maybe it's the logical mind as well. That's what I'm finding. A lot of people are that creative and ability. And stress, burnout, that's starting to creep in more. And just confidence. It's what they want to do. I'm just there to help them to find the space to answers and what's holding them back and to create that vision. And I was once in their shoes 6 years ago to 10 years ago, and like I have gone out of it. I know how liberating, as I mentioned earlier, just to not feeling like you're forced or trapped to do something or stuck, where a lot of people don't realize is that they're keeping themselves in the cage. That they could just walk out, or at least if they try to focus step by step by step. What I fear more is, or regret more potentially, is not trying. If something doesn't work out, you can always try again, or go back to a job, or it's nothing to do with the job, but move on to the next venture. Because I don't know, I just see so many people that have all this potential, dreams, and maybe it's a financial element. When they realize they might have to invest a couple €100 or possibly over €1,000 or more to get to where they really want. So that's a limitation there. If they can't afford it, then it's a different thing. But I think it's having the exact outcome, and this comes back realizing, well, I'm responsible for the actions I take. It might or might not work out, but the chances of it happening is when you become aware and remove those limiting self-beliefs and start putting in more powerful narratives that serve you. even if it is I'm not confident to I'm working on my confidence, can make a huge difference to your thinking and how you look at life. And it's bringing that unconscious to the conscious. I just think that's a lot of people just don't realize, well, how did I end up in as an accountant? Mammy or daddy was an accountant, family business, this is the path, this is an opportunity, and maybe there's guilt with people feeling like, oh, the parents put me through college, and all my friends are doing this as well. What if I walked away? And it's a brilliant path if you like it.
Yeah.
But if you're not, then do you want to continue possibly like that for the next 30 or 40 years? And another thing, James, is time. When I have the time, I know 4 people in their 20s that I would have all respected or had conversations with have died. And one of them is more than 11 years ago, and that none of them reached 30. And things like they'll never have the opportunity. And these are quite lively people traveling, half marathons, involved in a group or community and living life on their terms, but I don't know, unfortunate, tragic circumstances for some of them. And I don't want to say like, I'll do it when I have the time. When there's time now, there's never going to be a perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect moment. Now, I'm not saying be reckless, where I have jumped when I probably should have maybe planned some things out a little bit more, but I figured out how I go. I can handle it. That's basically it. I can handle it.
Yeah, some powerful sort of things to consider there about the time, the staying on. And I think there's definitely that thing because I've got the moment I've got some nieces that are getting of ending school age in a sense of what's it, the mandatory education, if you know what I mean, moving on to going into further education, university, then they'll be into employment or whatever that will look like for them. And I was reflecting back on the sort of 17, 18, 19 age and having to make those decisions that could potentially, the idea still that this is going to then lead to whatever I do in my career, for example. And as you say, like when you're 20s, it's really, you should try as many different things as possible, ideally now, especially, and just see what happens. Because I don't think it's till you get to the sort of late 20s, early 30s when you start to think, question, and understand a bit more about yourself that you really kind of go, well, what direction do I want to go in? Versus pinning the flag to the mast. This is what I am. This is what I'm going to do. As you say, forever for your entire working life. I don't think that's going to be anymore. And I think people who have already hit that sort of space and they're considering or thinking about is this really what I want to do? It's now thinking, yes, you can change. It's okay. It's going back to that thing of responsibility and permission. You don't have to ask for permission. You have to take responsibility.
Yeah, I agree. The permission is an interesting one. It's like it goes back into a dependent mindset, and it's like, well, is it okay to do this? Approval, support, or encouragement. I'm actually reading a book there before I came on to this episode of your podcast, and I think it's Susan Jefferson. Feel the fear and go do it. I think that's the name of it. And the chapter I was reading is that once you start going in a path you want, possibly your family or your friends might be resistant towards it because you're not the same person in their eyes, that maybe they feel intimidated, threatened, or projecting what they really want to do, but they see you doing it. So the only permission we need to give it is ourselves. As long as we're not impacting other people, hurting other people. And to go back on what you said, James, with 17 and 18 is a huge decision for 3 or 4 years commitment to a degree. And we change in university. That's probably our first level of going through growth, where, I don't know, depending what secondary school was like for you or not, it was a good experience or bad. Like university is a different, like you meet a lot of new people, a lot of new societies. So there's opportunities there. And then when you go into the workforce and the degree, maybe in university you have more choice, a little bit more freedom. If you want to go to your lectures, okay. If you don't, okay. If you want to hand in your assignments, okay. If you don't, okay. Where you work, you're expected to, hit the ground running. And I think it could be harder for
Mm.
just in that kind of environment where I would have been idealistic thinking, this is how a workplace should behave. But
Yeah.
it's only looking back and maybe near at some stage during it, why am I working with so many people that aren't happy? Why am I still here? Like, at least I was asking some questions, and it's like it's always seemed to be someone else, or this person or the client or the work, but it wasn't. Am I the problem?
Mm.
And I was the problem. They probably had their own problems, but it wasn't a healthy environment. And trying things, definitely do it in your 20s as much as you can. And look, if you're only starting to figure things out in your late 20s or early 30s, still try. It could be different if you're in a relationship and you're at that stage looking to settle down and getting a mortgage. But if you're single and the world is really your oyster, travel as much as you can. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, or 40 or 50, you're going to have to start again at some point if things aren't going well. And it's not to limit yourself. And that's the thing, James. The kind of clients. I get a lot of people from 27 to 35, and then there's a stop for a bit, and then it's like 45 to 50, and they're the ones that are
Yeah.
like, have this last one big career and moving me or set up this business and they believe it's the last time, but they could do it at 60 or they could do it at 55.
Sure.
It's probably like that sort of mentality, give it another 20 years, but some of them have worked with me. Others needed that 100% certainty, success, and it's like, the roadmap can change.
Yeah.
Like we know as coaches that what someone comes to us isn't really the problem, it's deeper.
Yeah.
When someone says, I hate my job, okay, that might be the outside of it, but what's happening in here? How come you've hated your job for the last 10, 15 years? Most of these people probably don't want to work with me because I said it could get very uncomfortable. And I think uncomfortable is brilliant. It leads to growth, and you're really peeling back that layer of maybe insecurity, self protection, that wall. So I would encourage, and I would be the same advice as you in your 20s, try as many things. If you travel, I came back after Canada 9 months. I didn't do my 2 years visa. At the time, it was like, I need to come back and try this acting thing in Ireland. I had it on my mind for a few years, but I closed that chapter after um, a few steps or maybe one audition, a few headshots, and a few classes again. But I could have easily stayed in Canada, maybe, and still been running away. I think I was only realizing I was running away when I was in Canada. I don't regret going to Canada. I don't regret moving back to Ireland. But those were sort of clinical moments of really trusting decisions. Now, with the acting and that, I might have got it wrong, but I needed to at least touch on it, which led me to coaching and personal development and self growth and really looking at psychology, psychotherapy books, and even relationships. Now, I'm doing a lot of work on myself. Coming out of a breakup there a couple of months ago, but looking at my own attachment style. These theories, but when you're trying to put into practical and reality, that I'd be considered an islander. So I'd need my own space, my own boundaries, and that. And that might be an insecurity in a way when you come around groups, or say like my previous partner's family. That sort of
Mm.
came to the breakdown. That what can I do differently? Did I really was portraying that? So maybe my communication and energy gave a different perception versus a different attachment style my partner has. So I'm really working on myself on relationships to make sure that doesn't happen again. And look, I've had problems with people in my teenage years of, um, sort of broke away from that group think mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I haven't touched on this, but I stayed back a year in school when I was younger because it took me a little bit longer to speak. That I wasn't at the comprehension level or the vocabulary where I should have been. But something like that, played stories quite young. I was creating stories without realizing it or the impact, or feel like you felt different. Like I had some people say to me, "Why did you stay back?" Or what's the reason for that? And one person particularly, and it was in secondary school actually, said, "Why are you different?" I was like, "What do you mean? Why am I different?" I was like, "You look at things differently. You stay back here and you don't engage." I think it was banter or slagging or something. I was like, after a while, that sort of drains me, and I don't get my energy from talking about people I don't like.
Yeah.
But I mean, even childhood and things like I've loving, nurturing parents and caring, but just staying back and dealing with struggles of not being in the same age group of your football team, or so there's always in a way a misalignment. But you all those experiences shape who I am now. Um, so I don't let it impact me, and even if there is things, I suppose where I'm going with that attachment style was probably a little bit younger, that I enjoy my own company. That's where I get I'm
Mm.
quite an introspective person, I feel. But in terms of boundaries and communication, I think that's probably one thing I'm still working on in a relationship sense, because I don't know what's going on in her head. She probably doesn't have a clue what's going on in mine. So there's always opportunities for learning, growth, doing better, and striving for that connection, which
Yeah.
hope to get back in my life again one day.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really important thing to share, Connor, in that in this space of personal development, coaching, well-being, whatever umbrella term you want to use for it, whether you're a person who's participating in it as a client, an attendee at an event, or you're the person leading as a speaker or as a coach. Thought leader is a great word at the moment, isn't it? There's always something for you as the individual to keep growing, whether you're at the theory top of the tree or at the bottom. There's always something else to work on. There's always some area you can grow yourself. Because if you're not doing it yourself, how are you going to keep that circular movement going of helping other people? So it's a thing to acknowledge. And then comes that's the self-awareness piece. Constantly thinking, well, what else can I do? But attaching that self-awareness piece, you said it a few times, it's moving away from hitting yourself or barraging yourself or that self, whatever it is, that sort of attaching a negative to it. You could go the way, well, I'm a qualified coach now. Why am I still thinking this way? That's unhelpful to think that I should have it all figured out. Does that make sense?
It does, James, and I like the way you said if at the top or the bottom. If you're probably at the bottom, that's probably the best opportunity to grow, because
100%.
you're progressing. Where if you've done quite a lot of work, and this is where I've been like a bit like, well, what can I improve on? Like everything felt okay. Like I'm doing a lot of work more in my business. I'm probably not quite content or satisfied where I'm at. That there's still a challenge in growing there, and even relationships. Something that I thought was going quite well. Obviously, the other person had a different perspective on it. Like, there's no right or wrong answers, but it's just one moment, one flash, and not understanding really what was important to her and what was important to me. So that was miscommunication. So communication can always be improved, and if that doesn't have to be a partner, it could be with your friends, your family, and coaches as well. Like I'm still growing, I'm still improving. I want to be the best coach I can be. I want to help as many people as I can to achieve their dreams or get them on the journey of progression. But I have to go to levels, and you probably have to go to levels of you haven't covered yourself first. What's really there that's holding us back at times, and we still have blind spots.
Of course.
Like we haven't have life all figured out, but we try to help the person find answers to their own life because they're the expert. But as you picked on a couple of things, I said awareness and trust earlier. These are the kind of things we pick up people's language, saying I can't, or if only you had this confidence, or patterns and themes, and then people start realizing, oh, actually, I'm actually putting a lot more limiting beliefs on myself than that. So like awareness. Awareness is the first thing, and that's what moves us away from this fixed mindset to the growth mindset, where we get a little bit more confident in getting out of that comfort zone, challenging ourselves a little bit more, and not being afraid of fear or success.
Yeah, it's interesting you said there you're touching on relationships, because I find it's an interesting one when you're saying, like, then in relation to use the name of the show, like what's important. And there's part of me now that I part of what I do in my coaching as well is when I talk about relationships, but I'm talking it from the widest perspective when relationships, from the stranger on the street to the most intimate. So it's like that whole broad. So it's almost coming to what you said, the whole thing of connection. How do you create relationships with people that you'll see once to the person you're going to maybe spend your life with? That whole thing of building relationships. But this is where I think the question of what's important to you can be expanded, and where we're slightly missing this is: are we asking that question in the collective? Do we might know what's important to ourselves, but do we know what's important to the partnership? Do we know what's important to the friendship? Do we know what's one as individuals, but then as a collective?
The individual agenda and then the couple agenda. And I think with a lot of relationships, when they break down, if it's partner or in the workplace or friends, we're probably too caught up, or one person's caught up in the individual agenda, that we lose the couple agenda, or what's our agenda? Why are we together? Like an image someone described to me once, James, was like a relationship is like a plant. So you have two people watering the plant. Now, if both people are watering the plant, it's all good, we're happy, perfect. But you could be the person that's only watering the plant and the other person walks off. So then you have three choices. Maybe at the moment you're feeling a little bit frustrated and stuck and you want to get them back. You can continue to water the plant and leave it, stay frustrated and continue with it. Or you can try to invite the person back and see what's up. Do you want to keep this plant going? See what's on their mind, and try to understand their world if they're open to saying it. And or the last option is you have to walk away from the plant, which means the relationship dies and the plant dies. That's what someone said to me once, and I really stuck with it. That let's say the individual agendas, but really the main agenda is that plant. With communication, and that I think the relationship we have with ourselves first is most important. If that's in a good space, you attract more positive people into your life, or that energy. Or if it's not, you're probably not going to attract the people potentially you deserve, or someone at the same wavelength or not, but it's probably not good for you in the long run. So really, I want to move from, if I'm in my next relationship, more from to an anchor rather than an islander. And it doesn't matter if my partner is an anchor, a wave, or an islander, but it's to get that agenda back as a team. And this is probably the biggest learning I had to do over the last couple of months, of suppressing my emotions and how I really felt, and maybe not communicating my needs and that more. Because relationships, I think the world's a lot happier with people in your life, sharing moments, creating experiences. Like, I have a lot of good friends. I get along with my family. And that book, Fear the Fear and Do It Anyway, I think it's Suver Jefferson. Could be wrong in the name, but she's right. It's, you feel a lot better going on journeys with people and creating that connection. So it's an interesting relation area coming up in coaching sessions, because one person wants to work on relationships, the other one just blames everyone else for what's happened. And if they're in that kind of mindset, it's a little bit more challenging, trying to underline their rules and expectations versus the other person's rules and expectations, and the boundaries as well. And if we're to go on a deeper level, I've finished reading Wired for Love by Stan. Can't think of the surname. It's opened up my eyes on a whole new level of how I come across, possibly, and how my partner came across a previous relationship, how I could have managed that things better. Look, I haven't it all figured out, and I'm a coach now. I'm back to starting rebuilding things differently in different areas of my life. I don't mind starting again, but I don't want the same sort of mistakes I made to happen again, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. But I think it then reflects back into what we talked about previously, and this sort of go back into the workplace and career, and that two things in a sense. One, the relationships that you have with those colleagues. But one of the other themes that's coming up is that personal responsibility again, and the blaming, how it can reflect in both. So the person who says it's all about the other person in their intimate or close relationships could be the same person that's blaming the company, the colleagues. It's that it's easier sometimes to put it on the outside than to deal with it on the inside, because it's that barrier. It's less vulnerable, it's less exposing, it's much. I don't know if it's because I think it's avoiding that piece. The word you said earlier, avoiding that pain of maybe having to look and accept that maybe there's something me. So it's everything you say, and it's rarely the surface thing that's the challenge. So whether it is in your career, whether it is in your relationships, whatever the thing is that I want to improve, it's something below that they're avoiding.
Avoiding if they're aware of it,
Mm.
or they just don't know. But I think most people, after a while, realize that they're
Yeah.
avoiding, as you said, blaming other people is the easier option. It comes to a point, it's like, well, you touched on everyone. Is it how you see the world and the eyes? And that comes back to the lens, or having the alignment of your internal world with the alignment with the external
Mm.
expectations and rules and boundaries. A lot of people don't even challenge these things. Once you do, and this can be liberating as well, it's like, wow, all this stuff, why was I holding on to it for so long? Like, I'm a lot happier now just letting it all go. It's quite common, James, where companies, people are made redundant after staying for 5, 10, 15 years. How can they treat me like this? I've given everything to them, but it's sort of external as well. How I say, it's like it's not your family. They're never going to be the people that are going to love and care for you. And especially now where AI is coming in and being replaced. But the deeper work and the inner work, I like to call it, is probably the most rewarding when you overcome those barriers, those emotional wounds that keep opening up that you just need to heal. That self-healing journey, it can be uncomfortable at first if you're not used to it. But when you come out the other side and see the transformation of my own journey or your own journey or whoever of our clients, it's a really powerful space being a coach, having that presence, dancing in that moment, and someone opening up their world to you in a safe and supportive environment. And we challenge where necessary, if in a gentle way or they need it. But that's probably the thing with companies and maybe your colleagues and that. They don't know your world. You're all sharing maybe an agenda of getting your work done, but it's probably more individualistic than team. And I think relationships, as you mentioned earlier, is very one where, when you're going through the honeymoon period, that could be a great time for the first 6-12 months. And then when you start gradually progressing, and I think it's just communication and just getting clear on what's important to me, what's important to you. Not putting unfair expectations or rules on the other person. I think
Yeah.
accepting them for who they truly are, from the good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing is I'd say at the moment, because you say it's come up obviously in a few conversations recently about AI, constant advancements of tech and things. And then obviously we've gone through COVID there a few years ago as well. And I think there's been lots of people transitioning from careers, from previous careers to something they want to do now. Obviously, advent of social media and the promotion of following things that are more important to you. There's still an element of people worrying and fear. And I think the AI thing is taking that fear to another level. My perspective on the moment, though, more I've looked at it and more I've listened to people, I think there's more opportunity to take those risks now because of it. So it's all about perspective. If you fear it, then you're going to hold on to something even more so that you might not like or hate. Because you're thinking, oh, like these, and then you could think, oh no, well, I've got a safe job here. I'm going to hold on to this, even though I can't stand it. Again, in 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years time, they might get rid of you because of AI. So, and you're done. So I think now, if it's even more of an opportunity to take the risks because of it. There's so much more if you have AI, if you have any of those AI tools as an individual, it can get you so much further than you would have had to reach out to all these people before to help you. Does that make sense?
I agree, James. It's taken that leap that, look, there's always going to be, like, the biggest risk is staying, I find,
Mm.
and then being let go, or worse, it impacts your mental health. That's where really you're self-betraying or fear, or as you said, holding on to, where if you're going to be let go in 3 or 4 years, or there's a clear indication, you could get 3 or 4 years ahead, just backing yourself more, and just, it's how you look at it. Just focus on small steps. An AI can be your friend at the start of your journey, or wherever stage you are, for brainstorming ideas or getting things in place. But I think you touched back earlier on our conversation. A lot of people put their job title as their identity. That work
Mm.
is their identity. If you take that away, is the world going to crumble? No, but you just have to start fresh again. And I think it's just maybe caught up in that career mindset. And if we go back to school, you're encouraged to have a career. And you asked questions earlier around why. We don't look at this in school. Like, why do you want to do this? Who are you? What's my core values? What would make me happy? You're not encouraged really to chase your dreams. You're more to get a stable job where there's work. And um, yeah, I don't know. There's something I think as well, the emotional intelligence as well. We could be looking a little bit more in school, communicating assertiveness, rather than learning maths theorems. Possibly we're never going to use an Irish language poetry that's been dead for so long. And I,
I yeah, I think it's just to sorry to interrupt, but I think it goes back to a word you said earlier, Connor, which is creativity.
creativity, we all have it, our own talents, our own gifts, we can share with the world. Um, I'd be more, James, it doesn't matter if it's in school or in the workplace, but it's about having choices.
Mm.
It starts in school where you're really sort of limited, where you're told in the Irish education system for Leaving Cert you have to do, I think it's Irish, English, a language, and maths, and then you have to pick three options. But you might want to do six subjects, but you can only pick three. So you're already being put on this path of possibly being stuck in subjects you don't like and could impact your overall experience or results, or even the workplace now with COVID. We know people can work from home, and a lot of people are more productive and happier. But if it's in lack of trust, insecurity of management, shareholder value, or looking for reasons, bringing people back, and that, and causing this negativity, not being caught in traffic, commuting up and down. And like, I remember one of my neighbors saying, like, she'd be very career orientated woman, saying, well, they moved down to the country, that's their own fault, we need people in the office. It's like, well, you want people in the office. And then when I asked why, she couldn't give a reason. So there's not even a strong enough why on their end. And it all comes back to why. And I think if we looked and tapped into that a little bit more, it could be that significant difference to start making those changes, James.
Yeah, Absolutely. Well, I think we were kind of the first to go through that sort of real change. The generation that wasn't there was never a question of not going into the workplace every day, and COVID kind of accelerated that option or technology that you could do it, and work could still be done whether it's not in an office space. In the next sort of 10 years, the next generation coming into the workplace, they'll be just like, no, I just won't do it. They're much more sort of like, it may have taken people from my age or whatever to take them that hanging on to that security was a big thing. So they're less likely to take risks and walk away. I think the last generation are just like, no, just go. So they'll have to change because there won't be any people there.
There won't be any people there, or they burn out, or the
Hmm.
traditional careers of, I don't know, maybe law, accountancy, finance, or financial services, or they won't have those people left. And there's less people studying accountancy, for example. And the younger, I don't want to say that they wouldn't be much younger than us, but I think they've seen maybe older siblings or maybe their parents or someone else going through this system. It's like they're not happy, they're miserable, they're taking their frustration out of us. Um, and even just seeing lots of redundancies, firings. I think it will. I think it will change in 10 years' time. I just feel that the CEOs and the CFOs, from my experience in recruitment, they're the only two people that make all the decisions. They can overrule HR, for example, or different departments. And it's like we're bringing everyone back to the office, and nearly most places, I don't know, are back 3 days a week. Some are five, and yeah, isn't making any difference to productivity. People are burning out, and I think it's just a mindset or generational thing, fixed mindset, and maybe don't want to be challenged or open to new ideas.
Well, I think there's going to be the next few years because again the advent and the expansion of AI. There are going to be companies that we don't even know about yet that are going to solve problems that we don't even know are problems. So there's still going to be workplaces. Of course, there is. There's still going to be so many industries that aren't going to be removed by AI. But I think there are going to be a number of roles, and there'll be companies. I was listening to something about AI at the moment. There's the expectation there's going to be at some point a person, an individual, is going to become either a millionaire or a billionaire on their own, purely through the use of AI. So there won't be a CSO, CFO, CEO. There won't be all of that because someone's going to be able to perfect a company individually themselves using AI. And so I think there's going to be recruitment AI companies. Do you know what I mean? So if you're an individual coming up going, well, all I have to do is submit my CV, the AI reads it, sends me the opportunities that best suit it because it knows, and then it arranges the interview, arranges, you know what I mean? It's going to take it all away. So this is where I think there's the risk of companies at the moment being so that sort of old school mentality of get everyone back in and do all this. It only takes that one person to go, you know what, I can do this better, and they'll go do it.
Yeah, I could see that happening, James. One person using AI tools to their advantage and becoming a self-made millionaire, potentially a billionaire. And the other thing with the AI recruitment companies, I think that will become a system, or there'll be one company that look after all recruitment. I think a lot of agencies will die out. In-house companies will have better teams, but AI is going to change a lot of things, and I guess maybe holding on to the old school mentality. If it's the next 5 years, I think the most 10, it's not going to be there much longer because people aren't going to tolerate it anymore, and they just want to enjoy their life, do the work 9 to 5, and not believe you have to stay back, working for free just to climb the ladder. A lot of trainees and interns and early career professionals, and you can even say managers to some extent, are being exploited to fulfill this company's agenda.
Absolutely. I think it's again the way that I see it, and because I'm using it. Hey, I'm using it myself for my own sort of business and stuff in the sense of the AI. It's not to fear it; it's to how can you use it? How can you enable it to get you further on and accelerate what is it you want to do? I think you said at the beginning of the conversation is maybe you're coming from a quite philosophical perspective in the way you see yourself and where you see what you do. But I think we need more of that to have that opposite to the AI. The AI is a tool for us to enable us to move things quicker and where there's smaller group of people, whether it's an individual or a smaller team. It will replace so many of these extras that have been created in these companies, thinking of approvals and all this sort of stuff. But if you have the right philosophy leading into something, the AI is just going to get you there quicker. So I think whatever sort of business or idea or thing you want to come up with, if your philosophy is well thought through and grounded, the tech will just accelerate you.
Yeah, if you know your vision and you can see how
Yeah.
these tools and techniques can help, you can get a lot further. And I think fear, I think especially if AI is not going to take your job. It's just your job is unfortunately not going to, how I say it. It's probably not. It's outgrown itself. It's an opportunity for you to go find another job, or at
Yeah.
least create that job you want to do, rather than letting fear stop it. And I think that's the problem, James, with people. It's like they're so worried that AI is, well, you could take AI too and take your job and implement it and work for yourself, or try to find a company where they could see you as value. I think the whole company loyalty, being loyal to a company and the company being loyal to you has been long gone. It's like we pay you a salary, you do a job, and then as long as you're getting what they want and you get, it's sort of like a partnership. But you don't want to be on the side where you're feeling you're underpaid or you're taking on too much work and it leads to resentment, because then it comes back to, well, do I want to stay or do I want to leave? And I see a lot of good things. AI I've been using a lot more this last 12 months. It's made my life a little bit easier and even given me new ideas and perspectives too. But I
Mm.
think there's a lot of interesting things for the next 5 or 10 years that could happen in the recruitment space, the financial services space, or I don't know what other industries. Can accountants be replaced by AI? Not too sure on that. Some people are convinced it will happen, but maybe some tedious jobs or repetitive ones could. But it's exciting times as well, and I wouldn't let it be fearful. But you need to sort of change your thinking on it. That's what I'd say to people, or perspective or mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it just go back to that point you said there, people could be fearful of maybe losing their job, but losing a job that they hate.
I'd see that
It
as a blessing in disguise.
yeah, exactly.
I think
Yeah.
it's the money.
Yeah, for sure.
Money's important, but I think it just comes back to that identity. What would I
Mm,
do if I have no job? What would I do? I think once
mm,
people realize or they're taken out of it, like there's two ways you can react to it. You can hold on to this fear, I've been let go, be resentful, be angry or annoyed, or say like, I'm actually out of this. I can do things now I've been putting off for so long, and you know,
mm,
really do what I want. Decision's been made for you. They've let you go. You're free. You know, they're lost. That's how I would look at it. And that's probably what, in a way, happened with COVID. It gave me time to read so many books and do things I've been putting off for years in terms of my own personal development. So 2020, I know, was bad for a lot of people in terms of losing jobs and losing their lives, unfortunately, if they got ill. But for me, it was sort of the rebuilding of the
mm.
next chapter, because I just invested so much in books and done a coaching course. Um, that's probably where, I don't know, with workplaces, there was something there I want to touch back on. It's just about choice. Allowing someone, if they want to come in 3 days a week or 5 days a week, or if they want to work at home 5 days a week. It comes to choices. And when people feel like their choices are being taken away, I think people can agree, look, we can come in 1 or 2 days a week if it was a strong enough why, or what's the reason. But we're just attending meetings and having Zoom calls in an office building. It's just like, well, is this really it? I don't know, maybe, I don't know, trying CEOs I spoke with before and that, I think in their eyes, they just think that's the way how things are done. I disagree, but it's just different perspectives from working in recruitment. Um, but I think it's just choice, and that's where that whole sort of freedom to choose and freedom to, have autonomy over your work or being micromanaged or pressurized, and it's just I know it's sad to see that most people are not happy in their jobs, and that's unfortunately most of the people that come to me, and probably the same with you, James. But they just need to trust themselves a little bit more, and a coach can actually help get you further along the way than trying to figure things out. If there's one thing I could have done differently in my own business journey, maybe ask for help sooner. Look, you learn from it, and if it was maybe following the wrong instinct or the wrong path, where now I feel like I'm moving in the right direction and learning about myself more, and as a coach and a business owner. And that's the good thing. We can always learn, change direction, and get better, but not fall into the trap of chasing the next shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, 100%. Totally can reflect on that, because sometimes when you feel like you're not maybe making the progress that you hoped for or expected, you kind of think there must be something out there that's just going to flick a switch and everything will just turn. But it's really is going back to the things you've said so many times, going back to the values, going back to the consistency of action, keep on those paths. Connor, there are a few questions I'd like to ask everyone who comes on the show. So the first one is there a quote or phrase that's important to you?
The first one that jumps out at me, James, is by Samuel Beckett. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. That's my relationship with failure, and it's like a gift and a teacher for me. And the beauty of it is when something doesn't work out, if there's a setback, you can always give yourself a second, third, fourth chance. And it's not to fear failure, because if you don't try, you're going to fail straight away. And if you tried and it didn't work out, or you didn't like it, or you got clarity, that's better than holding on to what you described earlier of a job you hate, or fear of being let go from AI or your employer or something like that. So that would be one of my most favorite quotes.
Who would you say have been the biggest influences in your life?
Not specific names, but obviously my parents have helped got me to where I am, especially when I struggled earlier in my early years of speech and difficulty, to keep
Mm,
encouraging me to go on and improve and do that better. So I think that's in a way how I developed resilience and persistence, and even just allow me to figure things out when there's tough times in my 20s, and just to come home and just give myself space rather than put myself under pressure. Those friends as well have played a part of my journey. Their coaches, mentors, anyone that's given their time to have a conversation with me, and even having this conversation here to hopefully, if someone got value who will listen later. So it's just about building those professional relationships and having connections on both personal and professional levels. So there's a number of people, James, that have gotten me to where I am. Just anyone that's given their time for a coffee or multiple things was all part of my journey. So it could be at least 15 to 20 people, I would say,
yeah,
would have been an important part of my life.
love it. It's been wonderful to chat to you, Connor. I do have one more question for you before I let you go, which is now what's important for your future?
Important for my future. I think I want to reconnect with myself more on relationship level and build more authentic relationships again. Really tap into that positive energy I had earlier this year and reconnect with some other friends or build relationships with friends I'm seeing a little bit more. the relationship side and to go more and deeper with attachment styles and learning about what could be impacting myself or other people. And then the second thing would be growing the business further and doing my best to progress with it and, venture into new opportunities if I can and possibilities. But really, if I was look at things, I always put myself first and then my business.
Mm.
Because if I'm in a
Yeah.
good place, my business can hopefully blossom and flourish as well.
Yeah, I love it. No, I think it was really important where you put something you want to work on first, because it's, as you said earlier on, it's the self, and then what can you do once you're in that good space? How can you help others?
Exactly, James.
I
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure that people do get your help and support. We will make sure links are in the notes, but if you would live to give a shout out now of where people can follow and connect with you online.
Mainly LinkedIn, James. I do have an Instagram presence as well, but much smaller. But you can really get me on LinkedIn and like even my website, CWC Coaching and Consulting. There's an email address there, submission form if you ever wanted to reach out or just have a conversation. But it's really true LinkedIn, and I'm open to having conversations with most people if I can help them in any way and see where the journey goes.
100%. We'll make sure those links are in the notes, and make sure you connect with Conor on LinkedIn. Conor, thank you so much again for chatting to me today.
James, thank you. Enjoyed our conversation. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if it resonated, share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment or ask a question, and let's keep the conversation going. I'm James Dean, and I'll be back soon with another real conversation to help you reconnect with what truly matters. Until then, take care and stay curious.